we can confirm that the face of the party on the ballot paper in respect of MK Party will be that of Mr. Jacob Zuma.
In your election news headlines this hour, the IEC has confirmed that former President Jacob Zuma's photo will be displayed on the voting ballot beside the name and emblem of the MK Party for the upcoming national and provincial elections.
Kubalulekile ukuba abephansi kolawulo lwe-ANC kunezinto ezininzi afuneka sizenze ukuphucula impilo yabantu KwaZulu-Natal, eGauteng, eKapa.
Also, the ANC provincial leaders in KwaZulu-Natal have met with members of the National Executive Committee. This is on their action plan as the battle for votes intensifies.
We thought we are only going to be the kingmakers in the province, but now with their help coming on board, we are confident that we are now the front runners.
Patriotic Alliance leader Gayton Mackenzie says he is confident of the success in the Western Cape come the May 29th elections. This comes as 5 smaller political parties pledged their support for the PA. And welcome to it. You are tuned into Elections 360 Daily. Lapho zobe sikhuluma khona ngeyihlobo ehlukahlukene ke mbukele ibalekile njengoba sibheke okhethweni. Kanti ke igama ngumxolisi wakwaMasango and kulo hlelo mbukeli we will be crisscrossing eMzansi Africa and giving you an opportunity to give us your views on different subject matters. This happens every Monday to Thursday from 5 to 5:30 p.m. khona la kunqa phambili SABC 1 eMzansi for sure ku DTT as well as all of our digital platforms. Namuhla ke mbukeli, we are talking about illegal firearms that are causing havoc in the country. Siyakubuza ke siuhlelo ukuthi what should be done to reduce illegal guns. Ungaxhumana nathi ke enkundleni zethu zokuxhumana kanti ke futhi ungashayela nocingo ku 011 714 0726 0727 noma ku 0728 or hit us up on our social media platforms as khona ku X as SABC Izindaba, on Facebook as well as SABC Izindaba. Make sure that you use our hashtag @Elections360 Daily. This makes it easy for us to pick up all your interaction on the program. Kanti ke Elections 360 Daily iqala njengamanje. Now, the worrying concern about the levels of violence and murder across the provinces and the country is the easy access to illegal guns in Mbugeli. Kuthiwa ke ibhamu that are now flowing into South Africa are also making their way outside the borders, and criminal groups use them in illegal mining, house robberies, cash in transit heists and murders. Also, the escalation of gun battles between amaphoyisa kanye negebengu has heightened concerns about the number of guns in the hands of civilians as well as criminals. Now, such incidences as we approach the election season with crime on top of the voters' agenda raises concerns about whether are we winning the war against illegal guns la eMzansi Africa. Would implementing stricter gun laws help eMzansi Africa with its crime crisis? Well, that's a question that we asked you, and this is what you had to say.
I think the mitigation strategy to decrease the gun violence in South Africa is not that effective. I think recent research shows that it has increased to a staggering 35%, which is truly preposterous if you ask me. I think the state needs to do more in ensuring that guns are not easily accessible just to anyone, that these things, there should be a rigorous process that one has to go through to ensure that you are able to have a firearm legally.
Maybe people should carry their licenses and they should be asked regularly, like, hey, we see you have a gun on your waist. Can we just see if you have your license on you or anything, just to keep check. But visibility of police also has to be there so we can feel the pressure of walking around with guns or stopping searches and everything.
Really not safe. I'm a taxi. I'm a taxi. I'm everywhere. And do you know, you saw me go because of them. Like, I feel like we're not safe. And what are we voting for if we're going to still not be safe? We have, it's in us students, we should be safe. Like it's in the student. But when we walk around, no, are we not being shot in ads or something? So I don't think, like, I really want to vote, but I feel like my vote is just going to waste. Because I feel like there's nothing being done about any gun violence in this country.
Kanti, to discuss this further, let us welcome Adele Kirsten, and she's the Executive Director of Gun Free South Africa. We're also joined by David Bruce, who's a consultant on Policing Institute for Security Studies. Thank you so much for your time, and of course we did extend an invite to the police, and unfortunately we didn't receive any confirmation until the last hour. Perhaps let's of course start here with you, Mr. Bruce. We've seen incidents of guns which also pointed to that illegal guns are being used. What do you think is not being done right at this particular point in time when we look at areas such as Marianne Hill, where we saw a councillor also being gunned down recently? Where do all these guns come from?
Right. Good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me to be part of this discussion. Well, you know, I think one of the things that we probably could have much better information on if the police were responding more effectively to gun violence would be, you know, better information on the main sources of illegal firearms. I know that the one concern is that, you know, one of the sources of illegal firearms is legally owned firearms. And so, you know, there are an enormous number of legally owned firearms in South Africa. You know, some of these firearms are lost or stolen, and that obviously feeds into the problem of illegal firearms. But, you know, there may also be other sources of these firearms, and it would be, you know, if it would be helpful if the police would be developing better information on this kind of question.
And Adele, I must say that law-abiding citizens have tried everything in their power to try and comply with the requirements of the Firearms Control Act. But I would say it also then becomes difficult to comply if the administration has broken down. Let's hear your insights on this.
Good afternoon and hello to your viewers. I think I just want to add on to what David said and then come to the question is, it's absolutely critical that SABC is recovering guns in crime, because once they recover them, they can track and trace them and determine the source. And if you know what the source is, then you can put in strategies to at least reduce the risk for these guns moving from the legal to the illegal market. So we know that almost all guns start off their life as a legal entity. And that includes like legally owned weapons from SABC, from private security industry, and then of course from private individual citizens. But at the same time, we know that for any law to work, it needs what we call two bookends. It needs to be enforced and implemented well, and that's really the job of SABC, to implement the Firearms Control Act. But it also requires compliance from the people for whom this law you know, is geared for. And so that includes your private gun owners. Now, there are several 100,000 people who, since the introduction of the new gun law in 2000, have failed to renew their guns because of a court interdict that said those with green ID licenses did not have to renew because of some technical issues within the Central Firearms Registry. There was nothing to stop these 100,000, several 100,000 gun owners from bringing themselves under the new Act, which is much more stringent, requires much more comprehensive background checks. So I would suggest that the evidence shows that there isn't necessarily huge compliance.
Yeah, and
by
actually,
gun owners with the gun law.
And Adele, I think when we come back from the break, I'd like for us to also delve into some of the election manifestos that we've seen and whether they delve into tackling this issue of illegal firearms in the country. Mbukeli siyabuya emva kwalokho uhlala nathi khona la kwi-Elections 360 Daily. Sahlezi nathi khona la ku-Elections 360 Daily mbukeleni siyaqhubeka-ke nenkulumo yethu nevakashi zethu. And Adele, I was about to delve into that question that I teased just before the break around the election manifestos that we've heard thus far and whether they speak to this problem of illegal firearms in the country.
Well, yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I think a really important one for all people who are going to vote in South Africa. So the question to your viewers is, do you know what your political party or the party that you are thinking of voting for, do you know what their position is on gun control and on illegal firearms? So we've done some analysis of kind of 10 or 12 parties. All parties talk about the issue of crime and safety, and most talk about the impact of crime and safety on women and children. So that's quite a common theme. Very few have anything to say about firearms, and that's worrying, because if you are concerned about crime and safety, you have to be focusing on guns. You know, over 40% of our murders are gun-related. Guns are used in cash and transit heists, they're used in political assassinations, they're used in house invasions. And so that's worrying. We know that Rise Mzansi specifically addresses the issue of dealing with illegal firearms, but even there, they don't go far enough about what are they planning to do. There are other parties that see the right or talk about the right of citizens to self-defense and to have the right to own firearms. We would point out to viewers that there's no such right in our Constitution. You do not have a right to own a firearm for self-protection.
I also actually want us to bring Bruce back into the fold, because right now we're also tackling those election manifestos and whether or not they're able to speak to this problem of illegal firearms. Let's also hear from you, Bruce. What's your take on this?
Well, you see, I mean, I think that if you look at least the manifestos that I have looked at, the issue of illegal firearms is raised in quite a few of them. And so, I mean, I think you could say that there's to some degree a consensus that illegal firearms, as they're described, are a problem. What we think would be useful is for there to be more of an understanding of and focus on the concept of firearm violence. So as Adele has said, firearms are associated with various forms of crime. They are associated with, 40% or more murders, depending on what statistics you look at. But then also that varies quite substantially between provinces. So there are some provinces where perhaps as many as 60% of murders are linked to firearms, while in the Northern Cape, for instance, available data is that less than 10% of murders are linked to firearms.
Okay. I also just want us to park it here for now, Bruce, because we are pressed for time. I want us to actually just check in with what's happening on the ground right now on the program, because last week, 6 men connected to the murder of Luke Fleurs, a defender for Kaizer Chiefs, appeared in the Roodepoort Magistrates Court. Now, Fleurs was shot and killed during a hijacking incident in Roodepoort, Egoli, which is located in the west of Johannesburg. Now, in Westbury, shootings and killings have been the order of the day day every weekend, and people are losing lives in the area. We now take you to intatheli yethu uAzaria Khoza. Now, he is in conversation with Westbury community activist Jefferson Alistair Johnson Africa, who's also a victim of gun violence. Azaria, so njengamanje we are approaching voting day. What are some of the conversations that are happening there on the ground, particularly masbuga ama illegal firearms as well as gun violence in the country?
Ngibonga kakhulu kuwe Mxolisi. Yebo mbukeli, namhlanje silapha emgwaqeni yase Westbury. We are of course talking about gun violence, which is also prevalent in this community. Joining me right now is Mr. Jefferson. Sir, welcome to the show. Welcome to Elections Daily 360. I just want you to tell me a bit about the gun violence in this community. How rife is it?
Azaria, thank you for having us. At this moment, for this weekend alone, we had about 11 shootings on one day. That was Saturday. On the very same street where we parked, there was 4 people that were shot, a 14-year-old, 2 people died. And then later on the evening, 2 people shot on the other side. And then also, like in total, there was 10 people that was, or 11 people that was shot, where 4 passed this weekend.
Wow. All right. So now, what are some of the implementations that you think we should introduce in order to end gun violence? What should be done?
Well, what my mind is all about is the fact that if the police comes in and they stabilize us, fence us down, make sure that you implement some strategy for us to be able to take on to it. Wisely so that we can set up these CPF structures at the flats, at the streets that we live in, to make sure that while our area is stabilized, that's the only thing that we'll be able to do.
So at this point in time, when you guys are reporting to the police, what happens?
Well, they do come, but they come late. 2, if they do, on the same street, the police was stopped where the people were shot. People on the same street stopped the police to stop the car because they were passing each other, and they drove on. There was no interest with regards to our community.
Wow. All right, Mbugeli, I also have a lady here who happens to have lost one of her loved ones through gun violence. Ma'am, welcome to Elections Daily 360. I just want you to tell me a bit about the loved one that you lost through gun violence in this community. What happened?
Thank you very much. My brother, Gavin Snell, they called him Mabena. He was murdered on the 29th of February of this year, 2024. He was shot 21 shots at the Sasa tree here in Westbury. Up until today, we haven't received any feedback from the police, nothing from them. We don't know what is the reason behind shooting him, nothing up until today. When we went to the police station to give them the case, we were asked, was he a gangster? We were asked, was he a merchant? Was he selling drugs? When we said no, they told us straight to our faces that we are lying and nothing will happen to this case. They can't even take this case on. Now, to me, why do we have a police station that refuses? They treat us like we are the criminals and the criminals are the victims. So what are we going to do? What is Becky going to do about this whole thing? Becky came to Westbury. He made promises in Westbury that the army will come, that he will bring some form of rescue to the people of Westbury and to the other colored communities. Up until today, he has done absolutely nothing. I just want to add one more thing. The sergeants at Sapphire Town Police Station, they didn't even go and get the footages of my brother's death. They were not even interested in doing that. So up until today, nothing has happened to his case.
All right, speaking of promises, I know that a lot of political parties right now, they're running their manifestos, they're going door to door, they're asking people to vote for them. Do you think some of
Again, Azaria Khoza, lawyer, our boots on the ground, if you may, Mbugeli, getting us some of the latest conversations around Otabalolo sikhuluma ngalo namhlanje la e-studio. Siyabuya emva kwalokho uhlala nathi khona la ku-Elections 360 Daily. Sahlezi nathi khona la Elections 360 Daily sesifike emaphethelweni enkulumo yethu. And Bruce, let's just give you the opportunity to give us your parting shot right now. Having heard the plight of the community there in Westbury, are we going to win the fight against illegal firearms in the country? Just to wrap it up, a quick one, please.
Well, the short answer from my side is that at this point I don't see a overall police strategy in response to firearm violence. And so, you know, at this point, it seems that the problem is, if anything, escalating rather than, you know, being effectively responded to.
All right, we have to thank you so much. That's David Bruce, consultant on Policing Institute for Security Studies, as well as Adele Kirsten, Executive Director of Gun Free South Africa. Thank you so much for choosing us.